Good morning. Welcome to the Wednesday session of the Effingham BoS Selectmen'S meeting, September 8, 2021. Before we get started, let's do a pledge of allegiance if we would. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good morning, folks. Let's dive right into it. The signature folder. I make a motion to adopt the minutes of August 24, 2021. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, Fuller, aye?
Aye. I wasn't here.
You weren't here. Perfect. You were going to abstain then, right?
Right.
Good. Okay. Make a motion to pass the non-public minutes from August 24, 2021. Do you hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, Fuller, aye?
Aye.
And Tom abstain?
Second.
Good. Selectmen's non-public minutes from August.
I think I did that twice.
Oh, you did.
There was
Okay,
only once.
good.
Oh, my bad, sorry.
That's okay. We can do it twice, just to make sure we count it. The selectmen minutes from August 31, 2021. I was not here from that one, so somebody make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I just have one correction on it.
Okay,
We got votes of 3 to 3-0, and it's actually 2-0,
Okay.
double places, that's all.
Okay.
so you're seconding,
Second.
and then go ahead and vote.
Aye.
I'll abstain. Thank you. In the signature folder, we had a contract for Cartographic Association. Audrey, do you know if that's the annual contract?
It is, and it was never processed for this year, so it's actually starting in January.
Okay. For the work they've already done for us. Okay, that's good. All right.
Yeah, the gentleman there said often they just keep working for towns and never get it in writing, but
Perfect.
we're looking for it in writing.
As long as they get the money in their hands and
Right.
do it, yes, like, yep. The other thing we had in the signature folder was an Eversource energy efficiency incentive offer. It's a little over $8,200. So for the historic town hall project, part of the phase 1 work is insulation to the second floor of the building in partial parts of the building. And as a result of that, Eversource is going to be giving us a 50% grant back based on the work that's being done. So it'll be a little over $8,200 once they process it. And the insulation project was completed last week. There's also an appointment form for the deputy town clerk tax collector in here. I had actually talked to Deanna ahead of time, and because she's not here today, she's in a training session. She is going to be attending a session with the Board of Selectmen next week to talk about that appointment and the process that she's used to make her recommendation. So we're not signing that today. We'll add that to next week's. There was a property tax credit exemption in there and a notice of an intent to cut. Audrey, did you and I agree on who was going to try and draft that letter around the whole tree thing?
Yes, I'm going to do it, and I spoke with David today about it.
Okay, good. I also talked to Chief Duchesne, and the 21 or 22 different companies we've had in town this year for just this calendar year. Those names have been put into an Excel file. And Chief Duchesne said, if we send the Excel file to his office, he will look up all of the mailing address and contact information and get the envelopes ready to go for mailing.
Okay.
So we'll mail those out when we do that. So there's no time limit on that. We're just working on it. Make a motion to approve the manifest of September 9, 2021 in the amount of $27,051.88. 88 cents. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Fuller, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Review of the mail, the CMA Province Lake Drainage Improvements Analysis for Bailey Road. So the final report came in, and all of they printed copies of a lot of it. So there's attachments for all the engineering studies, the water analysis studies. There was multiple studies that were done as part of that. And for folks that need to be reminded, this particular project was part of a grant that we approved a couple years ago. And our cost of that $75,000 grant was up to $980, $980 or something like that for interest. So we ended up getting over $70,000 in grant money for a cost of less than $1,000. So that project is done on that part. For that initial part, there is currently some bid proposals being prepared to be able to go in and go to the next stage of this thing, which is creating the DES permit for the funding to put us in a position where we can bid that out and have it ready to go for town meeting. So when we get to town meeting, we'll know what the project is, we'll know where the funding's coming from, we'll know who the vendors are that are going to be chosen for doing that particular project for next year. The emergency fix that was done is completed at this stage of the game. So we're happy to see that work.
They're done, they're not coming back, to do anything more?
Not that I'm aware of. Is there, what do you say?
Well, there's no, it's still gonna be road underneath that cement they poured.
It's only a temporary, it's a temporary pour. The only thing that is to hold the banking from caving in.
Yeah. but I
It's all
mean-
gonna get ripped out less than a year from now.
Yeah, but I mean, the money we spent there, I think we get kind of ripped off by looking
We-
at what they've done there. So,
We haven't seen the final bill yet that I'm
Oh.
aware of. Did you see it last week?
no,
Okay.
no, the
Yeah.
contract was,
It was up to
40 grand.
40,000, but they actually changed the process, which made it
Oh,
less
okay.
expensive. So I'm told we can be expecting another number.
all right,
So, yeah, if it was
Just,
40,000, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
So, okay, and administrator comments. Audrey.
So thanks, Tom, on those two lights on School Street, checking that out. That was one of my action items, is to reach out to Eversource. And the MS1 and the MS434 have been submitted. The 434 is a draft document, and we will update that as prior to having a tax rate set. I have a call on Clean Harbors for the oil prices, haven't heard back yet. Refining the personnel policy for distribution, we'll need to set that for maybe a work session, Chuck.
Yep. Next week's gonna be a little tight because of the multiple meetings we're gonna have around the budget,
Yeah.
but the week after, I think we can squeeze it in.
And this week, my priority is to get the remaining, I think it's $197 for the USDA grant.
Perfect.
And so it's a short week for us in the office from Monday being a holiday.
Good.
That's it.
And I know, in a discussion, the barrel that we needed removed by Clean Harbors apparently has been removed already because of DES and the fire department did it.
Yes, and DES came here, so I now have a direct contact information, which is huge. And he was, the gentleman, his history is a farmer, and he was able to identify right away that it was fermented. And so I canceled Clean Harbors.
Perfect.
And as far as any cost associated with us picking it up or bringing it to the transfer station, it will be significantly less than paying.
Yeah, it's gonna be a stipend for the fire department. Okay, good. Oh, glad that one is done.
Me too.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Good. Lenny,
Mark would like to know if we could purchase a battery operated Sawzall for Bill. You know, Bill, somebody brings something in, Bill takes it all apart.
well,
so
yeah, for the metal and stuff like that,
Yeah.
stuff that can't go in the metal bin.
He thought it would be easier for Bill if he had Sawzall. So I looked at budget versus actual. The tools are, I think, a couple dollars over, but
This one's worth it because by adding the metal separating the metal from the other pieces or whatever's brought in, we actually get paid for metal.
right.
So that'll help reduce our
I
costs.
says I'll bring it up and I prices. I don't think we can find the money somewhere.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell them, come up with one, or you can choose it,
Okay.
get it, and
Okay.
put it in.
Okay. And the state's logging on state forest on Wilkinson Swamp Road.
Okay,
I came through there, what day did I come through there? The day I stopped in here anyway. And they had ruts in the road, probably. There was some sinkholes there that were probably a good 2 feet deep, coming out with a load, so. It probably should be kept an eye on. So,
yeah, and we probably ought to have a discussion with the logger,
yeah,
because of the
I don't know
damage.
who's doing it.
Was anybody actively up there? when
I
it-
didn't go into the land and,
Okay,
the truck had come out.
all right.
I didn't see
Um,
anybody. But,
We should, do we get copies of those timber cuts? It's in
Yeah, I
Effingham.
remember
Sure
that.
we should have something.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
the state, we signed the intent to cut for the state forest.
Okay, can we get
I
the,
don't remember who the logger was.
well, but I think we get the contact name and number for the entity that requested it. We can basically let them know that there's a lot of severe road damage that's gonna have to be remediated when they're done.
You'd like me to reach out to them?
Yeah, I would say start there where they kind of quote unquote own the project. And then they can delegate it to a logging company or whoever.
And they put your stakes in the culvert on Clough Road. He took his traps out finally Saturday. He took his traps out. So I put the posts on the upper side. I didn't put them on the lower side.
Oh, okay, well, they're actually, Chris is gonna install the
Yeah.
receiver today or tomorrow.
Oh,
on the other
today,
side.
I didn't know it was coming
Yeah,
that
I
quick.
didn't
so-
know it either till
Yeah,
last
but-
night.
I found a grate in, laying in the brook, so I put that on the outward portion.
Okay,
Kind of maybe discourage them a little bit.
yeah, so I will, when we're done the meeting, I'll send Chris a text and tell him just when he sets it, just to pull those stakes
Yeah,
and save them, because we'll use them on the lower end of the culvert.
well, with that screen I put on the lower end, I don't know if I.
Do we need to hold it in with any of those
I don't know,
posts?
I just, it's kind of bent up, but
Okay,
it's something they had there before, and
all right, then we'll save the posts here for the next time we need them somewhere.
yeah. And we saw, you got the thing there about the sinkhole in Champion Hill.
Yep, and I went down and looked at that myself yesterday, and I got a message over to Ron that we need to take care of that pretty quick.
Yeah,
I did talk to Chris, because he's been observing it and watching it as the water's been coming down and going into the ground right there where the pavement caved in. And he said it's not getting any bigger because of whatever is in there for the containment area for the actual steel drain that's on top. He says it's so loose and open, the water's just running right down off the pavement into the ground, into that, and then going down through the culvert.
yeah.
So he's going to have to do some work to shore that back up.
But while they're there working, we probably should have them clean that ditch line out before winter.
Okay.
So we don't end up with the ice problem like we did a few years back.
I think last year, we ended up doing that after the leaves came down, because they
Yeah.
ended up getting clogged. So I think we need to put that on the list, but wait until after we've got the leaf drop done.
Well, I don't know when they'll get to it. And I was talking with Randy, there's a couple of trees at the back of the station two. One of them's got some branches leaning up, and laying on the roof and leaning up against the back of the building. And he talked to the landowner behind him, Andy Brown, and Andy says they're not on his property. But even if they were, Andy wouldn't pay any money to take them down anyway, so.
And Jason somehow is involved with the ownership of it. The property is literally directly to the right side of that building. Because he and I talked 2 years ago about trying to get Consolidated to come out and take that telephone pole that's no longer being used down, so we can take the guide wire out. because he was willing to let us cut that tree down.
No, this is station 2.
Station 2, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's where they poured that pad out back where they were gonna put an addition on. Well, anyway, it's a couple pines.
Yeah, the
So-
folks that so the ownership of that is not the folks that you selling that have got it for sale, the 80 acres for sale, right? Or is
No,
it-
no,
Okay.
it's the guy that's owns this land behind the cemetery, lives on Rumney Hill Road.
Are you gonna reach out to them and ask them if it's okay to do it, or
Oh, he already told Randy, Randy got
they can
him
do it?
down there, he said they're not on his land.
I hope they're touching our
We
building.
can, we can find the post out at the road, but not the one out back. And we could find.
If he's okay with it. I think we ought to get that in writing, just a quick email or something, but then do it. I mean, we gotta make sure we're protecting the building and stuff from
Yeah.
potentially
Do you want
falling.
to get a price or just have?
The guy you got's been cost effective in doing some of the other stuff we've had done, so I think we're okay.
Okay. We'll get old. That's all I got right now.
Tom?
Yeah, well, I was on the shelf, but I was going over the minutes of the meeting. I wasn't here. And I think Lenny, you brought up about the oil signs for the oil containment.
Yeah.
We had Clean Harbors in here. When this all started. They actually offer a sign. If we went with them, they'll give us signage that we need to
Oh,
bring
yeah.
us in compliance. And we left a couple samples here. I might have them up at the house in a folder.
Oh, did you order signs yet?
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah, I would hold off on that because they were giving out like candy, so if we went with them. Maybe I'll save a couple bucks there. And I got a call at 6:05 this morning. Crackstone guys coming into town again to finish up today.
No.
So,
I had that as a question, like, where are we with that? Okay.
yeah,
All right.
and
How, have they been using more than they thought they would, or
he didn't say,
no indication?
no, he said we finished up today though.
Okay.
I seen them on Townhouse Road.
Today, or last week, yeah. And so I called Joe's cell number and just left a message with him that they were in town. And if anybody sees him out there, let's give him a wave, be nice. And
Yeah.
him working for us. And that's it.
Any word on the roadside mowing?
Yeah, I believe she got the insurance binder yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And he called me, he says again in here hopefully next week. That's it.
Good. Okay. The Townhouse Road culvert below Libby Road that we had as the washout for the last couple of years where the side of the road's been going down. That's been completely rebuilt and repaired, and rip wrap and everything else is in there. Have you had a chance to see that, Lenny?
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks good.
Looked like it was a good job. Okay. The paving for the new installation of the 3 overflow culverts on Pine River Road. I talked to Mike the other day and basically asked him to get an update from R&D on where they were with being able to give us a price to do that. They also contract with somebody locally in Tamworth, I believe it is, to do the smaller jobs. So I just asked him to get that done because we want to get that paid soon. We signed today a DES compliance certificate for the Pine River Road emergency permit process and the final design and final approval. I've signed it, but Audrey, I need to get the date from Mike when that was actually done. So that's the last thing on that document that needs to happen. And then we can file that. There was a nonprofit request a couple weeks ago, and a new nonprofit. And after having a discussion and trading some information with Budget Chair Dave Strauss, we need to just contact those folks and let them know that they'll need to create the warrant article and submit it to us for approval. We've had that as a standing process in the past, apparently. So we'll continue that if we can. So if you can reach out to them and just let them know that. The other thing that I did prior to leaving for vacation a week ago, I actually contacted Municipal Resources, Inc. To speak with the fire services director over there about a process for hiring the new fire chief. And we did get a written proposal with 2 price options. As a result of that review, there's been some additional questions that need to be clarified regarding that proposal. And I shipped that information over to the gentleman that's the director of that department, Brian Dugan. And I did not hear from him by this morning, so we'll put that on next week's discussion around that. And just as an FYI, it was kind of interesting when I was talking to Mr. Dugan. He's actually a retired fire chief, I believe he said from Connecticut, moved up into the area 3 weeks ago, and he happens to live on Gray Fox Lane in our town. So he has a slight vested interest to help us with this to get the new chief hired. Okay, current graphics, we got that. Next week's Selectmen's meeting will be on Wednesday, the 15th, also rather than Tuesday. NHMA is offering finance and budget training for an entire time period of, I think, 10 to 4 on Tuesday. So the Selectmen's office has signed up, the Selectmen and the Budget Committee folks have been invited to review that particular presentation and training program. The Select Board and the Budget Committee folks will be viewing that at the town library. We'll use their big TV screen to view that whole thing. And I traded discussions with the person that coordinates that and sets up the registrations. Audrey set the registration up and took care of it. So we've completely registered for that to have that session done. Anything else on that one that we need, Audrey?
Darlene, Deanna, and myself will be watching it here.
Here, yep, right. Okay, and it's, as I said, it's a 10 to 4, I believe, is the time period. 9 to 4, okay. So we'll change the time to make sure we're down there before.
Yeah, I'll verify it.
Yep, yep.
But
So,
you
and you,
have to post that as a need.
yes,
Oh,
we
yeah,
will.
yeah.
We'll have to
Okay.
post as a selectmen's meeting at the
Thanks.
library for that training, because there'll be 3 of us there.
Yeah.
And you sent me the link, is that the link I saw yesterday that came through? Did you send me?
I don't remember sending one yesterday, so I'll verify.
Okay, well, maybe it could have been last week. I was going through all the emails from last week.
Yeah.
So I think
I
the
will
link was
verify.
there. Okay. Because I want to actually get out, I'll get down and set that up and try that ahead of time. Okay. I had other things on here, but everything's been covered. So time for public comment. Anything from the public? Budget chair is comfortable? Okay.
Anybody from the budget committee, did you show up to that, or did you?
Yes. Anybody,
Because I know I had a few people contact me and I told them to get a hold of Audrey.
anybody can show up to it.
Yeah, I
So
know they said you would.
the 3 of them will be here in this office and we basically can see
I'll send
if
you an
everybody
email.
showed up at the budget, from the budget committee and the selectmen, we've got more than enough seats.
I know there's at least half of us on the budget committee have been multiple ones, so
So,
probably at least 3 that need to go.
okay, then I'll forward that information to you. Audrey, can you forward Dave the information that you can pass it out, Dave?
And the Wilkinson swamp thing, you may want to just talk to our forester, because he should know everything that's going on for us cutting.
Okay.
So Mr. Libby is probably your first contact you want before the state, I would suggest, just as a FYI.
Good point. Audrey, can you make that call to Mr. Libby? Thank you. All right, anything else in the public comment, public arena? All right,
I just have one thing. not for
Yes.
public, But the delegation of deposit authority was in the signature folder.
Yep.
Deanna, did you sign that?
I signed it. Did you guys sign it? Yeah,
Okay.
it's signed,
All right.
both copies. No. Good, and let's see. Rebecca's in at 10 a.m. So we will bring her in at that point in time. So I guess there's no work session today. The scheduling didn't promote it. Next week, there will be a work session at 11 a.m. And as Audrey pointed out, we're going to be reviewing the documents that have already been submitted to the Department of Revenue for our projections for revenue for next year. And we'll talk about modifications to numbers that we think ought to be there and why. And we'll review the budget actuals during that same session.
No one online for public comment?
No.
Thanks.
Okay. That will be it for this session today. We will be going into a non-public. That non-public will be (91-A:3) subsection 2A. And the time on that will be 9:26. All those in favor? Going into non-public?
I'll second.
Aye. Okay. Thank you very much, folks.
Nice work on all that grant money.
So how's your vacation?
It was excellent. It was unplugged. There was no internet service
How
and
nice.
and
That's
cell
the
service
best.
stunk.
Yeah, when
So-
I go away, it's, awkward.
Yeah.
Hear from it. I love it.
Yeah, we hit some museums. We, you know, got plenty of,
Grandkid next week.
no, it was just Grace and I.
Okay, that's good.
Yep. Oh, yeah, just a downtime.
That's a nice,
First time in a couple of years. So,
great.
but,
So the coyotes were there too.
The coyotes
Oh.
are there.
we had, she said that she was hearing the coyotes every night. She said there's
Wow.
more coyotes there than we have around our place.
Where did you go?
Little Deer Isle up in Maine.
Okay.
So we were kind of on the, we were facing southern off the island. So we were kind of looking at the island chains out there. And yeah, it was nice. We only had one day of rain. That was the
Yeah, I
one,
was
the
gonna
one day
say,
that came
we
through.
really didn't have much here either. I
Yep.
mean, not good.
Yep.
Thank God. But, because I know in a lot of other places they flooded.
Yep, yep.
You know, Jersey.
Yeah,
Forget it.
Yeah, my son lives down in Jersey and it was
Yeah.
basically, he was lucky. They were on higher ground, but a lot of the roads they usually use were closed. The water
Yeah.
just
I
covered.
saw some pictures, a friend of mine sent pictures, because this is my route to work, and I went, oh my God, be careful. And she goes, no, I'm working remotely, I broke my foot. I'm not on it, a friend sent me this, they were going, I said, oh my God. Unfortunately, because living in Louisiana, and experiencing those floods, experiencing those floods down in Louisiana, it's no fun. It's really serious stuff.
Give it a second.
Second.
All those in favor? All right.
Aye.
Good, thank you. Okay. Are we live?
We are live.
Okay, we're now going to go into a discussion with Town Administrator Audrey Frazier regarding some issues that have come up. She has requested, under which RSA, Audrey?
It's one of the 91As. It's the beginning of 91A.
Okay. Audrey has requested that this discussion regarding her performance be made public and wants it taped. Is that a true statement, Audrey?
Yes.
Perfect, good. All right. It has come to the attention of the board over the last several months. A few things have occurred. And they are performance-related issues. The first one that I want to talk about is the submission of the MS 434 that was done last week. On August 24th at the Selectmen'S meeting, the Select Board, through my direction, told Audrey not to file that 434 until I came back from vacation and we had a chance to meet this week. Because the numbers that go into that are worked, and they're worked ahead of time in working with DRA, and it is a standard town practice the way we've done that in the past. That was not done. Numbers were put in and numbers were submitted. So I guess, Audrey, I'm kind of asking, it's like, what didn't you understand around, don't submit that?
I actually just listened to the recording of August 24th and typing my minutes, and I have to disagree that you said that.
Okay. Did I misspeak, gentlemen?
The recording is on YouTube.
I believe I told you not to submit the document.
You did not.
Okay. Then we'll deal with that recording. And we'll deal with it. So I am going to ask you at this point in time, do not submit anything else to DRA until it's been board approved. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much on that one. And I will go back to and I will listen to that tape to make sure that we're in play. If I'm wrong, I will apologize to you on tape next week. Second item, job description. You're hired as a town administrator, correct?
Yes,
Not a town manager, correct?
that's correct.
Okay. So it's come to my attention that you've decided to go into other departments and help them run their department at your own request without their asking you to come into it. I've had discussions with two of those department heads personally and have been confirmed. So as a town administrator, you're hired by the Board of Selectmen to run the Selectmen's office. You are not, you're not hired to tell the treasurer what to do. You're not hired to tell the police department what to do. You're not hired to tell the town clerk, tax collector what to do. Those are their departments, they run them. The board has agreed that unless you need to get something for day-to-day operations, you stay out of how they run their business. Is that okay?
I do have a comment as I work for the three of you and support you. There are certain rules, hiring records that need to be kept. I feel that the town administrator position is an advisory position to other departments. And, you know, even things like the security of the police department. When I was there with A&B Law and the secretary was back there, there were things that came to my attention, and, you know, I bring those to the chief's attention. So there is a process for hiring and following the personnel policy. And when we all have lunch together and those things are discussed, I feel that it's my responsibility to advise.
Well, that's a policy you've taken on and installed yourself without discussion with the Board of Selectmen. So moving forward, if you decide you want to offer a suggestion to create a change within another department, have the discussion with the selectmen first. And then if needed, we can all have a discussion, or you can have the discussion with the department head. But at this point, stay out of their business as far as running their departments. Not yours.
Okay.
What they do within staff, what they pay their staff, how they manage their staff, how they run what's going on in their office is not your problem. If you see something that concerns you, raise it with the Board of Selectmen. Are we clear?
I hear you.
Thank you very much. Hours of operation for the Selectmen's office. There are posted hours for the Selectmen's office when we are supposed to be open to the public. And I have it on pretty good authority that there are occasions now where there are nobody sitting behind that window when office hours are to be open. Your job as the town administrator is to make sure that the open hours are staffed. That's your job.
I realize that.
Okay, so from now on, it needs to be staffed. If you folks need to make some changes, great. If it's a case where you need to be out on an emergency and the office has got to be closed, put something on the internet, put something up on the wall, ask somebody to put a sign up saying office closed due to emergency. But in neither scenarios that I'm aware of did any of that occur. It just nobody was here. and people came in looking for help in the selectman's office. So going forward, please properly staff during open hours.
Okay, I'm not aware of that, but,
That sounds
Yeah.
good. I'm good. I just,
okay,
yep, I understand what you're saying. I understand the information I've gotten from a couple of different people directly. So I just want to make it clear, here's where we're at with that. The other thing is paying bills on time. We've had this discussion more than once. I've had this discussion with you and Darlene in writing, explaining why the Board of Selectmen, when a bill comes in, that bill is paid very timely, like in the next week. And if it happens to come in on a Friday or a Monday, it'll still get paid on the manifest for Tuesday. I know that adds a little bit of work, understand that. But this town has had a reputation in the past of not paying its bills on time. Some of it because they didn't have the money at the time, but some of it was contractors didn't get paid. There are people that live in this town as contractors that will no longer work for this town because of the way they were treated by the town when it came to the work they did. So we've made a major effort over the last 2.5 years to make sure that the contractors we're hiring are paid in a very timely manner, which has actually helped our credibility in the public eye with contractors. So I saw all the email traffic in the last couple of days regarding the $1,600 DES permit, March 11, 12, whatever. The fact that it was missed is not the responsibility of an employee. The fact that it didn't get handled is your responsibility. The buck stops at your desk. I know you love to delegate. I get that. I'm from the corporate world. I know what that value is. We're a small organization. Delegation and a lot of stuff doesn't happen and shouldn't happen. And if it's happening, it's still your responsibility to know what the heck's going on when you delegate. So the fact that it came in and got stamped and oops, it missed and never got done, it's still your buck. The process needs to be probably looked at and refined a little bit to make sure that when stuff comes in, it's handled properly and timely. Don't know what the process is you're using when you open up your mail and how you divvy it up in the office, whatever, that's your responsibility. All I'm saying is I think you have an avenue to better utilize a process. I'm not sure how we didn't pay the freight charge for the culverts we had coming in. I thought I saw it on the invoice. Now I'm gonna go back and take a look at the invoice because I'm not sure. But it's one of those things where I do remember seeing the shipping charge and the invoice charge for the culverts. And the fact that we didn't pay the shipping charge is a concern because the vendors got to start picking up the phone and calling us, where's my money? And at this stage of the game, we would like to return a couple of those culverts. And we know we're going to pay shipping on those, but the town will receive some money back based on the culverts that weren't needed as part of that emergency repair. So from that standpoint, any questions on bills?
I have a couple of things I would like to clarify. There's multiple people who see the bills, including the selectmen on the manifest. And so there's a little bit of responsibility on you to question things. The one specifically for the $1,600 for the ARM fund, I believe it's 16 approximately.
It's a little over that, yeah.
Did not come over my desk. The person that it was given to was here on that day and took the mail or was handed their mail. I did not see it. There are things that are going to happen like that. I was told that it's in writing that it was repetitively asked about, not to me, not to my staff. If someone asked you, none of you passed it on to me. And the process was a process that has been working. The prior office assistant would stamp and distribute the mail. And so I continued that process because it was working. And I would hope that if you were walking through the door and someone handed you a letter, that you would then bring it to me. That always didn't happen in the past. So there are things that can be overlooked. And I agree, it's my responsibility to deal with anything that comes through this office door. But if it's handed to one of you directly, then, or if you see something in your box, I ask that you say, hey, Audrey, did you catch this? That was not done with this piece of mail. And I knew nothing about it until Friday. And even when I asked for the full piece of mail, I received an email that was a rant. And most of the things on it are incorrect. And I have all that documented.
It's on the record because it's in the town archive file for email, so it's available.
And so I did pursue it yesterday immediately. I came in on the holiday. So I think I go above and beyond.
I am not questioning the fact that you work hard, because I've seen what you do. That's not the issue. And it may be because of the workload you're dealing with, it's causing a little bit of a lack of focus in some of the other areas. So maybe it's a case that we need to redefine a little bit about what you're doing so you can focus on a better and tighter process. I'm going to let you provide some guidance on that if you want that, but that's an open discussion if you want it.
Most of these items are came to you from the same person. And
Some of them did. I've received stuff from 5 different people. So it's not just one person, just to let you know that.
okay,
So it's the issue for me, and we talked about it in our non-public on this topic, was basically, it's a pattern that's growing and getting worse. Because it wasn't there 8 months ago. And all of a sudden it's beginning to get worse in numerous areas. That's why it's a concern. So these are just the 4 that I pulled up because they're the ones that are hitting bam, bam, bam. But it's one of those things like, if it's a case where you need more help and staff time, that is something I asked you to think about at the beginning of the summer when we start talking about budget season. What do we need for staff in the selectman's office to run it the way it should be run? So when you make the presentation here next week, I'm hoping that you're coming to the table with something around why you either don't think we need any more hours or why we do need more hours and what that might look like. Is that fair?
yes, I'm prepared for that discussion.
Okay, good. Okay, super. Okay, that's all I had from this standpoint. So do you have anything else that you would like to add to the record?
I do. In my job description, the ad I responded to was prepare and submit a variety of state required reports. It was either August 10th or August 17th. It's not, I'd have to listen to the videos. I told the Board of Selectmen I was working on the MS1 and the MS 434. So I was doing my job as I understood it and following it. I believe I had asked to participate in discussions with, when you were having discussions outside the office.
And I explained to you in writing what that discussion was about, and it was from my personal education to prep for the larger discussion with you, Darlene, and the Board of Selectmen.
And the form was due September 1st.
And as I told you, whether it's on the tape or not, you weren't supposed to file that report. And you did. You did it not knowing any of the town history and how that report will be prepared and sent in. You took it upon yourself to just go do it. That's the issue I've got. If I hadn't told you not to do it, and you did it, so be it. But I told you not to do it, and you did it. That's the issue.
I
I've
don't have any record.
Oh,
of
I
you
understand
telling me
that.
not to.
Memory can slip. It's like emails missing too. Never got the email kind of thing. I got it. I'm telling you what was said. You were sitting right there and I was sitting right here. These two guys were sitting on either side of me. The fact you did it is what got me. Could be the 434, could have been any other form. I don't care. I specifically told you in this one instance, don't do it. We would deal with it when I got back from vacation. And you went and sent it out. So we had that discussion before you did that. I submitted in writing to you why I was doing what I was doing with training with Dave and Mike and what we were gonna be doing when I got back. Somehow it didn't translate.
I guess it didn't, because I have to respectfully disagree with you.
And I'm okay with that. That's what this process is all about. So at this point, do not submit any additional MS reports until they've been reviewed with the board. Thank you. Any other comments you want to make?
No,
Okay, good. Rebecca, I told her 20 minutes and we're just about at the 20-minute mark, so we could, yeah, you could just let her know. She's in,
I think she floated in
she just walked in.
a couple minutes ago. And
Oh. have to drag her away.
She
from
came
the
in, but then I told her 20 minutes and she said she would go out into the trailer.
You'll be right with us.
Good.
That's,
And while we're waiting for Rebecca, this is the normal monthly meeting where we ask the department head to come in and discuss their activities and answer any questions if should we have any.
And take smoke there.
You can take a smoke. I know she sent it out yesterday or the day before. Were you able to open up that zip file on the attachments? from
Rebecca's?
Rebecca's?
I didn't try.
Okay, I did, and it wouldn't work for me yesterday, so.
Hey, Dennis, I'm just gonna go out back and get my, report. So that
Sounds
I've
good.
got it to refer to, because I left it back there because I was conferring with Dave over, property continuance.
Oh, what?
Flipping backyard.
You're not getting that much. Chuck, do you know if the planning board did their hearing or was it delayed?
I believe it was delayed. They had a meeting last night, and they run a good couple hours. I don't think they dealt with anything on the Boyles Market.
Except the application didn't go through, I don't believe, right?
It was discussed, but I don't think it went
Was it
anywhere.
complete or something?
Still under discussion, or,
There's some hangups there.
Okay.
The meeting's on the 30th.
One of the abutters didn't get notified
okay.
because
Idiot.
No, that's good. It happens. It happens.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
Anyway, there was a discussion last night. My understanding is no decisions were made.
because
Next
the-
meeting.
The spelling of the name was incorrect. So
Okay.
I went out to.
It didn't go to the right address. in Arizona.
So that stalled it out. We did
Technicality.
Continue to look at the application. Nothing was solved, and we're gonna have to go through the whole thing over again once this abutter has been notified.
They had the wrong number in the zip code, the applicant.
Ah, all right. Audrey, did that answer what you were looking for?
I was just curious.
Okay, no, that's good. All right, Rebecca, thank you very much. By the looks of the reports and the volume of reports, you're busy.
I'm very busy. I'm having to triage what I get done in any week, because there's more than can be done in a 12-hour week. So if you look at the report and you see something that looks like it's, well, an example would be, say, the WhatsApps that were sent in June that need a follow-up to them, and the follow-up hasn't been done because there were primary letters that needed to go out because of things that people were reporting to me. So I'm just juggling each week to see which comes to the top of the pot and which needs to be dealt with.
So let me ask a question.
Sure.
Kind of looking at the volume of stuff that's going on and realizing, particularly around RVs and some other stuff, the volume is increasing. What are your thoughts on increasing the number of hours to 20 hours a week, whether you're doing the 20 or it's two people doing the 20?
I think bringing someone on board to handle specific issues could be considered. You know, long-term enforcement issues, or like the junkyards, and trying to solve the problem of what we're going to do about those, or things like the RVs, which are very time-consuming, could be handled by someone else. You know, my primary responsibility besides enforcement is permitting, and I can't let that slide. If someone has applied for a permit and they want to, you know, they want to build their house, I need to handle that in a timely manner. And the combination of the increase in the real estate market and people's interest in properties has just meant that that side of my job, which used to be the primary side, you know, 15 years ago when I started and was working 3 hours a week, that's what I was doing. But it was nowhere near as time consuming as it is now. The number of permits that are being applied for, the number of people that are looking at property and have emailed me with an easy question. I mean, I have no objection to answering someone's question about saying, well, you know, actually you're in a high value wetlands, that entire piece of property, I don't think you want to buy it. Doesn't take that long to do that. And it seems like it's a courteous thing for the town to do, to answer those questions. And I'm probably the most qualified to do it. But it does take time. You know, you've got, you know, the things that you've got on your desk each week are the emails from people who own property. They're asking questions about what they can do. The emails from realtors or individuals who are buying property who want generally a quick answer to, you know, what restrictions are in this piece of, on this piece of property that they're looking at. And then there's dealing with all the violations that are ongoing, and then it's dealing with the new observed violations, either observed by me or brought to my attention by a property owner. My neighbor has put up a shed, it's actually on my property. You write the letter, you send it out. The address that we have in our database is not a deliverable address. What's the next step you take in order to get an address to deliver that notice of, it's not even a violation, that what's up, saying, hey, you didn't get a building permit for your shed, I'm not sure it meets setbacks, you know, come talk to me. I don't have any way to contact that person. I don't have phone numbers. The address we have is not correct, and I'm not comfortable going onto someone's private property and nailing notices on their door. So, you know, there's things stack up like that. And I'm just giving that as an example of why 12 hours a week isn't clearing stuff off the list
Okay.
as it should be. I would love to have that list go back to one page.
Yeah, and that one of the questions I had, which was when you referenced the June stuff you put out, but haven't had a chance to follow up on. One of my questions was what would it take? Sounds like it's gonna be more hours to make that into a more timely follow-up, like within a month or
It's supposed to be
3
30
weeks?
days, yeah, but you know,
Okay,
you get to the end of the week, the hours are used up. I'm not interested in a 20-hour week job.
You'd be interested in putting a helper on.
Well,
Help you.
you know, a helper? No, you'd have, I mean, a helper, I mean, I was administrator for years and years and years. Helpers take up as much time as the stuff you do yourself because you have to oversee it. So the question is whether you can peel off part of this job and give it to someone who can act relatively independently of me and still report to me. But if we create a position, perhaps lower paid, that works with me, and I have to be supervising them, then you have to add into my hours, the supervisory hours, the fact that they have to report back to me, and it has to go onto my reports in a way that I can track. And you have to train
There
them.
is some training and oversight, no doubt about that. with the
Yeah,
second
so
part.
I'm not sure that that's the best route to go unless there's a portion of it that the selectmen would consider spinning off completely, which is not a whole concept part of it, like, you know, all of enforcement or all of this, but a specific area of it. Like, okay, this junkyard thing is really, you know, that's a list of people and we're doing this and I'm communicating with the attorney and I'm supposed to go to the court on Friday because one of the junkyards is gone to court hearing, so there's, you know,
Mhm.
there's the hours.
Yeah.
You know, maybe one of the selectmen or someone that the selectman is interested in involving would like to just take the junkyards thing as something they would like to pursue. That I have reached the enforcement to the point where decisions have to be made about these 6 properties. And I'm certainly willing to still go to court, having written the enforcement issue, but we got 4 properties out there that are crawling along at improvements, and we don't know, we haven't decided what we're gonna do. Are we gonna say we're just gonna wait and watch the improvements get slightly better? Are we going to grandfather them as places that handle metal? Are we gonna help them solve the problem, or are we gonna take them to court?
So the court actions I can actually see going up because of the volume of stuff that's going on.
Right.
And that will bite into your weekly schedule, doing the normal stuff. So from an hour standpoint, I know there's not enough there. We talked earlier in the year, as you were working closer with the assessing office and tracking building permit numbers, whatever, to be able to do stuff. We talked about follow up on septic systems with the state install.
Mhm.
Did you do any more thought on that process?
Yeah, my thought is it's a responsibility of the health officer. It's quite clear in the health ordinance that that level, the only reason I have anything to do with septic systems is our health ordinance states that I cannot issue a building permit without a state approved septic design. There is nothing further in my job description or in the zoning ordinance that indicates I have any other responsibilities about septic system or the health and safety due to septic systems with houses or with RVs that are on a campsite or anything like that. It's purely a health officer responsibility, quite clearly. So,
Existing installations, yes, but we've got to come up with a tracking system using the Avatar system to be able to follow up timely.
yeah, but
Make
it's
sure the state
still
inspections are getting done.
still doesn't fall within my job description or the enforcement of the zoning ordinance, because it is neither in my job description nor is it anywhere in the zoning ordinance that septic system tracking or following or whatever is part of the zoning enforcement job. If there is a tracking or enforcement issue for septic systems, RVs, whatever, either it's the health officer or the selectmen need to figure out how they want to do it, with or without Avatar. I mean, you know, there's lots of stuff that you can track in Avatar, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's connected with zoning enforcement.
Right.
I mean, I do the best I can working with
No,
Avatar Dave to
I got
correct
it.
stuff. I'm in the process of correcting something right now, and we've got a huge thing that we have to correct because it appears that the paperwork came from the state is confused between 2 properties. One is a sublot 1. So you've got whatever it is, 105.2 and 105.2.1, and they've always been owned by the same family, but now we've got a problem that one passed to the next generation and it's not clear which one. It only came up in front of me because the owner of one lot has applied for a solar array. Well, I can't issue a permit except to the owner. And the database doesn't show the correct owner. And that's because the changes have been made based on stuff that came from the state, and it's not clear which lot they're talking about.
Okay.
So we've got a building permit that's on hold and someone who wants to get solar in that can't be solved until we go track through all this information. And that, again, takes time. So I'm happy to do that. I mean, I like doing that. I like solving problems. But it's one that it's an example of how I do work with Dave and do work with the Avatar system to make sure it's accurate.
So knowing, I looked at your drive around time in August with hometown, like 2.5 hours. It's like, that is nowhere near enough to be watching the stuff that's going on out there.
Right.
Based on the volumes you're seeing right now, and you just make an assumption they hold it somewhere near this level. How many hours a week or a month do you think we need to have for that additional work effort to be able to monitor what's going on around town?
Well, it depends on what you're doing. I mean, if you're talking about monitoring violations, if that's what you think it is, I don't think we need to hire someone to monitor violations. We've got lots of people in town that are willing to tell me about violations. I mean, I had 3 different people at the planning board last night telling me about RV violations. So I don't think that's money well spent, quite honestly.
Oh, that's good.
And frankly, my drive around town is very often site visits for building permits. So it's a big town. I mean, if you have to do the loop from here all the way down to the bottom of Province Lake, Monument Road, and around again and back, and you can't go through Granite Road because there's no bridge, it's time consuming. And you saw what I had 14 permits this week. Now I don't know how many of them I did site visits for, and some of them the site visits were done in July. But basically, for all but repeat RVs, and now I've stopped going to Province Lake Campground to view every application because it didn't seem really the best use of my time. There's no setbacks to consider. Really, all I need to do is look at the square footage of the site and make sure that they're not exceeding the square footage coverage. So I no longer site visit a campsite in Ospey Lake Camping and look at it and say, yeah, okay, they can put a porch on that RV. Does not worth my time. But anything else, driveway permits, I always go out for, check the sight lines. That can be a 15 or 20 minute visit with me trying to figure out exactly, because they haven't staked it out. So I'm trying to find where it is. Our regulations say 10 feet back from the road at a height that you would be sitting in a car. So I'm out there with my 100-foot tape measure, trying to see if I've got the 200-foot sight lines. So that 2.5 hours is mostly about permitting. While I'm doing that cycle, I'll go, oh, look, looks like someone's got a new porch, or it looks like someone has a new shed. I'll make a note of it, come back, put it on the list to write them a letter. The letter probably won't go out till the next month because of the roll of stuff. So I don't think hiring someone for that. I mean, you could hire someone, I suppose, to just deal with RVs. You could hire someone big and burly that felt comfortable tromping onto someone's private property and taking a look at what's going on. I got an alert from someone down on Granite Road saying, the lot across the street, someone's been dragging something in and out. Have you checked it out? And I wrote back and I said, no, actually, don't go down somebody's private driveway. I checked the records and it hadn't changed hands. So I thought, well, the guy that's owning it is doing something. They said, well, I walked down there and there's an RV down there, whatever. And I think, yeah. So the next step for me is, do I take that neighbor's, who has trespassed technically, even if it's not posted, do I take his word that there's something down there and send a notification and risk it being someone who comes in really angry? You remember that guy last week? Really angry. Has someone been going on my property and looking at what I've got there?
Yeah.
So if it's visible from the road, no problem. But we've got Bob Waddington on our junkyard list, who's supposed to be applying to the planning board for a special exception of ZBA. which was a deal I kind of cut with him.
So is it a delay tactic, do you think?
A delay tactic, I don't know. He started it and then stopped, but here's the difficulty, his property is posted, he's an angry man. And he doesn't want people coming on his property, so I can't go back and view what he has there. And we're not going to. I mean, he wants to be put in the database as someone that doesn't want Avatar on his property. Same with the angry guy that came in last week. So, this is, in terms of the person who's out there meeting our citizenry, I'd be more concerned that our Avatar database listed the people who didn't want someone on their property than listing septics, but that's just, because I deal with angry people coming into the office, and I'm hoping that they're not wearing a sidearm.
So with the case with Waddington, is that a legal matter to be able to get access to verify?
I know what's there. It's how do we bring the pressure, like the other junkyards, how do we bring the pressure to make a property owner do what we think they should be doing? Because what I could do with these.
You mean according to the ordinance we have?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
what I could do with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oh, okay, 2 of them are illegal, so the 5 remaining ones on the list is we could just say, hey, we're sick of trying to work with you. So we're gonna send them all to Matt. We're gonna do a notice of violation, and if we don't get action in 7 days with a certified letter, we're gonna just have forward it on to Matt and it's off my list. I don't have to deal with it anymore. So that means we have what, 9 junkyard cases in court that we're paying for? Is that really the route we want to take? When we think that Waddington, with a little persuasion, would go to the planning board of the ZBA, and maybe we could tweak the concept of a contractor storage yard enough that when he puts stuff on his property, which is way up in the middle of nowhere and you don't see it. Do we really want to take Jan Van Tassel to court when his son, who co-owns the property, is working to get it cleaned up and they're gradually moving forward? Do we really want to take?
As long as you have progress going on and it's steady progress, I have no issues with that. But
But
when you're not getting any kind of response and people are not following up, we need to follow up.
right, but that's time consuming because most of these people are not interested in giving you monthly reports on what they're doing, even if you have suggested that. And then you have the guy down by the Freedom River. He's decided that his response to what I've told him he needs to do about that house is to tell me how he's supposed to do it. I did the cease and desist and I told him in a phone call what he needed to do, and I gave him a month and he didn't do anything. So I wrote him a letter, and his response to the letter was, oh, I didn't know there was a deadline on this. And besides, I don't have time to do this and I'm not going to do that and whatever. And, so I sent him an email last night saying, I'm sorry if you're busy, but, not having time isn't an excuse and you're in violation in 4 ways. And, I'll give you till Tuesday to get the information I need on my desk. And he wrote me another nasty email, basically saying, I'm the one that makes decisions about the process of this. You don't. I mean, that's an implication. It's just, it's not fun anymore. And
No,
I
no,
don't
but I mean,
mind
but-
enforcement, but I'm just
how-
saying it's the sheer volume of it and the amount of time it takes to do this. I mean, one
I
guy
got
knocking
that
down his
part.
building.
I've observed you don't have enough time.
Yeah.
I've been watching that for a few months and then looking at the volume you're doing. That's why I'm asking the question. The issue is if we don't keep a tighter process timeline, and if we gotta go to court, we gotta go to court. That's just the way it's gonna be. Because if we don't do that, we're not gonna clean up some of this stuff.
Yeah,
I
no,
listened to a couple
understand.
different sessions around how the conservationists were worried about Boyle's Market. But I haven't heard one conservationist talk about all the vehicles that are dripping oil on top of all the soil around this town. Because it affects the aquifer that they keep talking about.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, we need to basically come up with a tighter process, but what I'm hearing is a lot of it's time related.
A lot of it is time related. You could peel off the junk side of it and say that since junkyards are not allowed in town, But we do have a very old junkyard permitting process that is irrelevant because junkyards aren't allowed, but there was a certificate to operate a junkyard that's on our books. You could actually, I suppose, appoint one of yourselves or someone else in charge of junkyard oversight. I mean, I'm just, you know,
No.
thinking out loud here.
That's why I'm asking.
Which would mean that just as we're saying, okay, you know, RVs are my problems, new houses are my problems, you know, they need to get their septic design, but then I'm saying, okay, once we're tracking whether they've got it approved for operation, whether it's hooked up to the house, whether they're emptying their RVs properly, that's a health issue, that's a health officer issue. We're saying, okay, in terms of my observation or finding something and saying there is a non-compliant junkyard in town, you could say that is an enforcement issue, but we could create a sub area of junkyard enforcement with someone who was as knowledgeable as I am in regulatory stuff, but also interested in the other aspect. You did some research at one point about recycling, you know, the recycling of some stuff. Jan Van Tassel's son was telling us about a place that takes some of the aluminum or whatever from recycled RVs. I mean, that's, you know, that's a full-time time job in itself. Saying, okay, I'm gonna take any property that the zoning officer cites as a junkyard, and I'm gonna run with it. I'm gonna figure out how to solve it. You know, what the property owner needs. Are we taking it to court? Are we helping them resolve their issues? Are we finding them a venue to get rid of their stuff? Are we even researching perhaps that they are right and that their use is grandfathered and that we probably shouldn't be harassing them? I mean, it's true of Don Johnson and Monty Noble, is if they've been doing that since before zoning, we can impose certain standards of how you do it, I suppose, you know, safety or public health or groundwater. But I don't think you could shut them down, because if they've been doing it continuously since before zoning, then they have a right to operate what they're doing at the level it was when zoning came in. We don't know what that is. I don't know how we document that. But again, I think that that's a more community-friendly way to approach it than taking people to court. And it's certainly, I think in the long run, it's probably cheaper to have someone, you know, who's kind of into junkyards and regulation and conservation doing it than paying the law firm to do it.
Yeah, I'm totally agreeing with that.
And I think in terms of the public perception in the town, you know, how
If
the
we had
town is
big body-
behaving, it looks nicer to have said, we've got a junkyard problem. We're gonna get someone who's maybe run a junkyard in the past or is familiar with it, semi-retired, who's been in the automotive business, you know, whatever, to take this on and see if they, you know, they can't run with it. You know, that might be a good approach. And then we could, you know, pull half a dozen people off the top here, both in terms of my list, so we could get it back on the one page, always my goal. And also in terms of just segmenting it. If I find a new one, I can make a determination as to whether it can be cleaned up like that, or whether it could go to the junkyard guru to solve the problem.
So an additional body count to help with it, paid, with what you just described, seems like a better alternative solution than just saying it goes to the attorney at the attorney rates per hour.
I think so. I don't know what the pay for that would be. I mean, it's entirely possible. You
It's
never
not gonna
know.
be the hourly rate of the law firm.
No,
Yeah.
and very likely it's going to be less than my hourly rate, because it's going to be someone, you know, it's going to be, you want to pay them reasonably, but it's going to be entry level. I've been here 15 years. And you can also pick someone that perhaps feels a little bit more comfortable than I do at times dealing with a cantankerous property owner, who sees me as, you know, a little girl who shouldn't be on their property telling them what to do with engines. Quite honestly, doesn't bother me anymore, you know. I mean, I'm just gonna do the site visits to all those RVs that everyone was complaining about today. So I decided to wear, sneakers and work pants rather than shorts and sandals, just a little bit more, yeah. But, thinking, and I can think about it further, I'd be happy to think about it further, what we could pull off, peel off my responsibilities, but that's we're at the 1 year mark of this big initiative really getting off the ground for the junkyard.
But I think the board is interested, how can we improve the process to make sure it's being done professionally, timely, and if it needs to be addressed with additional body count and hours or additional hours, we should have that discussion as to what it might look like. So if you can think about it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm thinking that that just as I said, just as the whole septic thing, once my building permit gets stamped because they've got a design. For instance, there's a house down on Wilkinson Swamp, the ADU down there. That the ADU is up. It doesn't look occupied yet. And once we hit winter and the road closed, I won't be driving by it on a loop. I'd have to make a special trip down there to look at it. The only reason I'm going down there is to see if somebody's starting to live in it, and then I have to go check with DES to see if the permit approval for operation has gone through. All those steps are something that someone else could be doing. They could have a list of all the approval for constructions that have come into this town, and they could be tracking what stage of the process the property is in. Is it a replacement system that got approval for construction and then approval for operation that turned around like that? Or is it an approval for construction that goes with new construction? Then they monitor the construction, and they keep a whole spreadsheet, the way I keep for all the zoning enforcement activity. They keep a whole spreadsheet for septic activity and drive around and keep track of it. And I don't know how many we get a year, but it's probably not as many building permits and infractions as I get through my office, and that would.
But the load would basically be a monthly load, and we could actually basically, the way you and David have set up the kind of the tracking system around the building permits, we can do a time element and run a report. At
Yeah.
intervals to be
Yeah.
able to go out and say, okay, we need to check through these.
Well, the health officer, you can go onto the DES website and query for septic permits.
Is our health officer, I didn't mean to interrupt you. How is the health officer notified now that there's gonna be a septic gonna be going in, and there's something that they?
There is an
where it's under-
email in the health office, that there is a health officer email. And the notices from the state of New Hampshire of all the information about septic design. So that the email that goes out from DES somebody has applied for a permit, that there's been approval for construction, and there's been approval for operation, and usually the digital design, and all that information goes to the health officer email. Am I correct? I mean, that's the health officer at Effingham NH .net. It's also possible to go onto the DES website, go to subservice queries, and put in a particular address and pull up that address, and it will tell you what status everything is. You can go and say, oh, they're still at approved for construction. They haven't got approved for operation yet. So, the Wilkinson Swamp one, you could say, oh, they're still approved for construction, not approved for operation. I'm gonna go down there, see if they put the system in. If they put the system in and covered it up and it's not approved for operation, they're in violation, but they're in violation of the state law. The state law
I
that
just wondered
says,
about,
yeah,
health officer how he was notified, or she, wherever. it
I don't
is.
know. I mean, I don't know
So they do
how,
have an address to put in that.
right,
Yeah, we created that
yeah,
a year ago.
yeah.
We implemented it.
Does it work?
Months ago, we
We
implemented
That's how it's
created
working.
it because up until
it.
that,
It is.
where the information from the state came had been shuffled around. It used to be it came to Gwen. She printed out, it used to be it came in the US mail. And Gwen gave me a copy of it, put it in my mailbox so that I would know that there was an approval for construction and I could match it up to see if it was a replacement system or if someone was applying for a septic system for a new house without having gotten a building permit. Then she would put the original in the property file. And then between Gwen and Dave and Gwen leaving and coming back, there were a lot of people in the office answering that email. I mean, you had Chris, you had Cheryl, you had Gwen again, you had the young woman who,
Chris,
yeah, quick, but there was also the young woman in the
Cheryl,
no, there was Mills, the woman who was she was the deputy or assistant town clerk for a while, and she was doubling over in the selectman's office for a while. She was learning the assessing program. So other than Gwen, who's been in and out, there has been Cheryl and Chris and Michelle Mills. Thank you, sir. Michelle Mills, who've all sat at that computer, and then you as well, and seen the email come in. And for as far as I know, within my department, nobody said, okay, when the email comes in from the health department, from DES with the information on the septic system, you're supposed to print it out and put it in the property file. I mean, Dave says we're so way behind on stuff that never got put in the files. So, septic, that could easily be a whole separate job. And Dave and I could certainly, in conjunction, who is the health officer? Is he
Mike.
Mike, that's what
Deputy.
your deputy. Okay, so I could meet with the two of you, just because I've been around a while. And so give a rough idea of what the process might be for structuring the health officer's job, but I'm sure there are towns that pay a health officer. I mean, I'm sure it's not necessarily volunteer. In fact, I was just, there's a whole thing in the
We're
latest,
actually gonna talk about,
yeah, there's a
some
whole
type
thing
of
in the latest
perspective.
Town and Country. Did you see that 2-page thing in Town and Country about health officers? And the level of responsibility beyond just septic
in
systems.
the new laws that came into play this year.
Yeah, the health officers are responsible for how the town is dealing with COVID.
We're a little bit behind in the whole management of the health officer.
Yeah. So anyway, happy to help out with that, but just sort of standing firm on I can't take it on my plate.
Okay,
It
Um,
can't be part of zoning enforcement. And structurally, the way our regulations are written is not, so it certainly is an appropriate thing to be separated out, whether it's a volunteer team or there's someone brought in with professional expertise.
when you issue a permit, I know we talked about changing it at one point to the word conditional permit, so people didn't go, yep, I'm ready to go, I can just move into my house kind of thing.
Right.
Do we communicate at all that, yeah, you're gonna prove your septic, but don't forget before you,
Yeah, I say that to everyone with new
no, you
construction.
say it, but I mean, do we have anything we hand them?
No, because there's nothing in our zoning ordinance that,
But the town could provide a helpful hint item, could it not, an educational item? Not a requirement of zoning, just a helpful hint to a person who's getting ready to do some work.
yeah, so
Okay.
perhaps the health officer and the board of selectmen would like to come up with a health standards handout that I could include when I issue someone a building permit. I do tell them orally and often in an email that, we're sending out your permit, and you do know you have to, I've got your septic design, and do remember that you need to have that septic approved for operation before you can move into your house. But we don't have a building code, we don't have certificates of occupancy, it's all a helpful thing. And so I'm, when I have the opportunity to say that, but the same as with inquiries from, realtors and everything else. You have to decide how much time you're gonna spend creating documents. I mean, I've got the, I've got,
Yeah, it could be, it could be similar to that, just something we've made up and done as a helpful hint for steps, be reminded of this kind of thing.
I think if you're playing catch up, quite honestly, and it sounds like we are, and I don't mean you guys, I mean we
No, we are
as
as
a town.
Yep.
if we're playing catch up on the health officer stuff, especially with the new regulations that have come down, that actually a postcard that's a guideline. I mean, my postcard I mailed out to all the property owners. I'm beginning to think that it was worth getting it in everyone's mailbox, but it's costly, and we did it. I did it 3 years running, and I'm beginning, and then I didn't do last year because I thought, well, with COVID, you know, let's just make that as an excuse. We didn't change anything. Ostensibly, it was to inform the community of changes in the zoning ordinance. So I bailed on it, saying, well, we didn't change anything in the zoning ordinance. But it's a good consideration as to how we do inform our populace, both of changes and of things that we're concerned about. I mean, you know, there's a lot to be said for old-fashioned newspaper advertising, you know? I mean, when you hire someone new in the town, don't have it fly under the radar. If you're gonna put a health officer and a deputy health officer on the beat, you get the reporters over here, and you do a big thing about how we've learned all this stuff about COVID, we learned about public health, we've learned what we need to be doing, and here's the article about what we're gonna do, and here's pictures of the people that are gonna be doing it. I mean, when I took this job, there was an article in the Carroll County Independent with my picture, all about my past history in zoning and sitting on the planning board and what I'd done. You know? I mean, when Wesley took the job out back from Marie, I didn't even know about it. Nobody even told me, it wasn't on the town website. There was no information about it, just flew right under the radar. And I just think that you do better putting it out there rather than letting someone in town who's aggrieved write a letter about it.
We could improve our communication across a lot of areas.
But anyway, as far as the health officer and public health and all that, I mean, that's a great area. Everyone's so concerned about that. Joanne Rainville, who's the community nurse in Tamworth, just did a 2.5-minute video PSA that went out on the local boards and is available on YouTube or whatever, just talking about wearing your mask and get vaccinated and get your flu shot and throwing some numbers out there. You know, it was a nice little piece of outreach. We had people on the message board in Sandwich saying, gee, I wish we had Joanne in our town. So anyway, I digress.
No.
Sorry, there's just so many things right in front of me at the moment.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the whole thing around the septic stuff and inspections and whatever has really been driven by the half a dozen we know that have gotten permits that haven't done correct installations.
Yeah.
Or no installation, and they're living in the properties.
Yeah,
So
I know, and I understand that, and I think that, I mean, what would be great to see would be finding 1 or 2 people that might be interested in, well, you've got 2 people for health officer. The question is whether whether you want to make it a paying position or at least have a stipend.
we're gonna have that discussion. during
Yeah, okay.
Budget.
None of my business, but
Yeah,
obviously.
no, it's gonna be part of the
obviously.
discussion.
And the junkyards, and as far as the junkyard concept goes, I've got 2 thoughts on that. One is that there might be someone sort of semi-retired, who knows a lot about that, who used to run automotive stuff or whatever, but is interested in things looking better in the town, that might want to take it on for a stipend. The other possibility is that there's a young up and coming person that would like to have a part-time in connection with what they're doing, that could be groomed to take over my job when I'm ready to retire. Because then they would know their way around my systems and my ropes. They could work totally independently on the junkyard stuff, and maybe, you know, maybe dip in on other stuff. They could report to you, or they could report to me but not work for me. You know, there might be a flow there that would work. But I'm not gonna be in this job forever.
Yeah, and our best opportunities at this point are with people that are retired and looking
Yeah.
for something to do, because hiring somebody younger, they're gonna be looking for a career kind of thing with benefits, and this town's not yet at the level it's willing to do the benefits and
Tell me about it.
retirement and other. So
I've been working 15 years without benefits.
you got vacation?
I don't get paid vacation.
You do?
Am I allowed to speak here?
I don't get paid vacation.
No, you're only working 13, 12 hours. That's right. You're down below
I
the
don't-
20 hours. Never mind, you're down below 20 hours, you're right.
Yeah.
But we're talking about that too, if you talk with some requests Lenny's had, so.
Mike is the senior official in this health officer thing. So I don't want to speak for him, but I think a lot of what the health officer's issue with septic systems is to see if there's anything wrong with them. It's not to uphold code and make sure that somebody's done it. Now, I can see where that could easily be checked by a health officer, but I don't know what the law is there.
Well, the guiding rule for us is the town of Effingham's health ordinance. So the town of Effingham's health ordinance is empowered, I'm trying to think of the word, by state statute. You can't do anything in New Hampshire from an enforcement standpoint without it being enabled by statute. So there's a state statute that enables the town health ordinance, which dates back to the
2002.
2002, okay. Predates zoning. It predates zoning. And it is a standalone document. It's not rolled into our zoning ordinance. In fact, there's nothing in our zoning ordinance about septic systems at all. I have asked the planning board to add a short paragraph, but they didn't get to any stuff last year because they were busy dealing with a couple of big projects in front of them and trying to deal with them, doing Zoom meetings and everything. I have a very simple statement that I've asked to have added to the zoning ordinance that states that a building permit requires a state approved septic design per the health ordinance. And that's,
Can you send Audrey the verbiage that you just, whatever you created, could you send that to her?
sure,
And then
it's in,
would you, when you get it, would you send it, or you can copy the three of us on it and Audrey?
sure, it's in the memo that I sent, 11 months ago to the planning board of my suggestions for changes to the zoning ordinance.
Yep.
And it came out of the conversations we've been having about enforcement, and I said, I think based on the health ordinance, the furthest we should go with the zoning ordinance is to say that it is where I get my power to require a septic design for a building permit is from the town health ordinance. Otherwise, without that, I would not have the power or authority to require a septic design for a building permit. That power is given to me by the health ordinance.
The health ordinance?
The health ordinance. And the health ordinance lays out the responsibility of how it is enforced. It doesn't say it's a zoning officer. I don't know if it says who enforces it. Back in the day, it was probably just enforced by the selectmen. Back in the day, everything was enforced by the selectmen because there wasn't any other enforcement on it.
The board and the health officers are actually gonna review that updated 2002 document in October.
Right.
For some changes, so this would be the appropriate time to
Right.
factor in the suggestion you have in the language.
Right, well, that language is for the zoning ordinance.
For the zoning ordinance?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not a suggestion,
No, that's good.
it's not a suggestion for change to the health ordinance. It's a suggestion for clarifying in the zoning ordinance why I have the authority to require a septic design before I issue a building permit. That's the only one. There's nothing anywhere in the health ordinance or the planning or the zoning ordinance that indicates that zoning enforcement includes tracking septic systems. It's not a zoning issue. It's just not a zoning issue.
I'll see if we can help move that particular item along.
It's seems to me that really the way other towns have dealt with this is they've installed a building inspector to do all of this stuff. That
Well,
we're
you've got that-
trying to find little places in different parts of our organization that can do these things.
Right,
But most of it is
there are
really,
no towns of our size up here that have building inspectors. Sanders doesn't have one, Ossipee has one, I think.
that Ospey
Wakefield
has
does.
one.
But those are towns with much more commercial activity. One of the main uses for a building inspector is tracking the building code for non-residential properties. That's when it's worth having a building inspector, because then your whole fee schedule changes, because you can charge a percentage of the cost of buildings if you're putting up commercial buildings, and it's helps support having a building inspector and all that. We will get there. I mean, Dave believes that within 5 years, the state will be mandating that every town
Yeah,
has a building
I've heard that
inspector.
from 2 or 3 different sources.
And, fine, within 5 years, I'm hoping to, be home doing my family history and genealogy work and not doing this.
Yep.
But, for the time being, you're absolutely right. If there are bits and pieces that we figure in 3 to 5 years time are gonna be rolled into a building inspector job, it's up to us to figure out which are the ones that we wanna manage now and how. And it's all very well to say, hey, it works best when it's only one hat. But we're not doing one hat right now.
That's where I was going with that, that really it's a stopgap measure, what we're looking for now. And I suppose I shouldn't do this, but I'll raise my hand again. I have to check with Mike to see how he wants to go about this, but I would have no problem helping Rebecca out looking at these trailers, and I'm gonna need some instruction with the junkyard thing, though. I don't know what the laws are or any of that, so.
Yeah, I would be happy to hand off, the junkyard thing to someone lock, stock and barrel. And I would give them.
Part of the increased hours thing, we can factor that in with your offer. Because it's gonna be part of the budget discussions around how are we gonna staff these things that in some cases are mandated by the state that we haven't been doing. We're gonna have to address it, but
Okay.
And it would be interesting, the way you put it, that's an interesting idea, because, we could have, Joe used to run the junkyard blow, sign on to do the junkyards, or we could have someone like yourself with maybe less experience about all of it, but more interested in enforcing it, and work more closely with me, because you might be less independent because you need to learn your way around it. But then it could be an associate position that perhaps I could then say, you're doing 10 hours a week, say. This week, if the junkyards are all just sort of on hold at the moment, maybe you could just run around, put on your biggest, burliest coat and run around and visit all these RVs and see what's going on. We could bundle those maybe together a little bit, because those are two issues, even though they're totally separate issues. They might be something that someone is interested in doing. I'm concerned, I have no problem with doing initial training type stuff. But I do have a problem with offering a job out to someone who doesn't understand land use and doesn't understand regulation and doesn't understand the problems, and spending the next 3 to 4 years that I'm here holding the hand of someone who says, but I don't understand why we're doing this. You, however, I know are a smart person.
Well,
At least from-
it's not what
Well, most of the dealings I've had with you as a property owner, we've had good conversations about the concept, like when you needed a second driveway cut. And I explained to you the issue of why I don't issue second driveway cuts, and you said, but there is a problem with the lay of the land, and I do want to do this with it. That's the kind of nuance that a lot of people don't have, and if they don't have it, please don't lumber me with them, because it's just gonna be,
so based on
not
this,
helpful.
based on this little discussion right here,
Mhm.
could you email the board bullet points on what you would, and they need to be short, and they don't need to be a whole lot of them, on what a potential job description would look like for what we just described and what you.
For
envision.
a deputy enforcement officer?
In your free time.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I mean, I got the phone, it's working, it's great. It's a great solution because it's all centralized. And I actually really like the fact that because it's a cell phone, I can text with people when there's a difficulty. And now
Text me and I'll tell them.
I've got an immediate record of stuff, whereas with the desk phone, I didn't, so I'm more connected. But I'm also, I'm turning it off on the weekend, but I'm returning a call on a Friday morning because someone's concerned about something. And sometimes if it's 5 minutes, I'm not even logging it, so, I don't mind that. But I'm just, sort of pointing out that my accessibility is something I feel is really important to this community, I mean, Audrey was wonderful. Last Tuesday, she checked on her way out. She came out back and she stuck her head in the door and said, just like that, because she knew that the person that had come in to see me was the person who'd come in the town offices earlier in the day, angry as. And she wanted to make sure I was okay. And he was fine. I talked him and his wife down. They were great. They were-
That's what needs to happen.
They were great, but that's, quite honestly, that's, I'll say, in all honesty, that's one of my strengths, 15 years here. And
Yeah, the
it's-
approach to the conversation is critical.
Yeah, except for a handful of people who just are perennially pissed off anyway. And we-
Two
there are
things
people like
I
that.
want to say, one, I think after going on one or two of these with you for the trailer things, I think I could probably hit the ground running. It's be just a matter of a few calls to make sure I'm doing the checklist and paperwork right, but
Well, yeah, and this is the thing, then we could hand off. Not only following up on RVs that are out there. And use RV because trailer has a different definition in some departments. Trailer is something that you tow behind that you put a boat or a car or something on. Even though you have to work with people who have different, they use trailer for mobile home. So it's, the language is,
okay.
there's a vocabulary. There's a glass of
I
full
understand.
time for 6.5 years. We're very familiar with RV.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, could reach a point where we've rolled off the permitting for RVs to the deputy. And if it's a repeat, then I don't generally go out, but we might think that maybe.
But that's,
If there's more
That's
time, it'd be something that. would
that's
be
the concept of
a good
the points I'm
idea.
looking for to start.
Yeah.
Okay, the second thing I wanted to mention is that before the deputy health inspector can do anything, he has to have a heads up from either the selectman or the health officer. That I read in. the
We're having
health
our
officer
first
thing.
health board meeting in October. Because we are it according to state law. And we
Before their
recently-
training or after?
Your training right now is what, 3 hours online?
No, in
Yeah, it's
October,
October.
It
they're
is in
going to the
October?
meeting.
Yeah, that's the next.
Is it a full
available.
day event?
I
Well, where is it?
think,
Concord?
I'm not sure
Concord.
how Mike wants to do it, so I'm
Okay.
waiting for him to,
It's in Concord.
but we're both signed up.
Okay,
And I think he wants to go to Concord for it rather than do it online.
yeah, because you can build your Rolodex a whole lot easier when you show up in person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those early trainings that I went to were immensely important.
Yeah.
Also being on PlanLink.
Yeah,
is.
well, this is
is
also a
valuable.
way for him to beginning train me on how to get beginning trained, you know?
That's why he probably suggested to me to do it in October rather than now,
Mhm.
was to do it after the training that you folks go
Right.
to.
Do you know what day that meeting is? So I can put it in his calendar?
Nothing's been set up officially. It was just broadly talked about October, but we can
Right.
narrow that down.
So I don't know where the authority would come for me to go on to people's property and
There is
post.
no authority for you to go on people's property.
Okay, so,
Even though our building permit application says that filling out that application authorizes the zoning enforcement officer to go on people's property. If they object, you can't. The only way you can get is an administrative warrant to enter the property if you really want to go onto property
okay,
that someone objects to.
Is that the same for the health officer too?
I don't know.
the health
But I
officer,
assume so.
With the current case that's been going on, that's exactly.
no, the health
No, that's
officer
outside.
does not need to get.
Right, that's what I thought.
If they are informed of a violation or have seen a violation, then they are allowed to go on any property, not in any property,
Right.
but on any property for inspection purposes and. so
Because it's a
that's
health and
state
safety
law.
thing,
Right.
whereas zoning is not considered health and
Right,
safety.
but again, I couldn't use that unless I was told by Mike or by. the
Right.
DOS
Something else
I could
that
do.
we might want to consider too is that maybe we've reached a point where we need name tags.
I just wrote that down.
The way census, for instance, my husband worked for the census. And evidently the federal government has said that census workers can go on property even if it's posted.
Right.
Wow.
Well,
No entry.
The state's given me a card and Mike, so
Yeah.
we can show people our card
Right.
when we're on. their
I've done
property.
15 years without any identification, and I used to think I wanted something on the side of the car, then I decided now, I don't think so.
It's like putting bullseye on the side.
Ah,
Well,
I have a
I
story.
wouldn't mind having an ID, and I wouldn't mind having an ID with a clip on it, that I could bring out if someone was sort of getting pushy. But it really, generally, if someone gets pushy, I wanna leave, and it's not that I'm a coward, it's just that I think that
No, that's.
I think my health is more important than an Effingham zoning violation.
Yeah, also,
So-
if you get to that point, no amount of words are gonna do anything, you gotta back off and come
Leave.
back again.
So one of the things that may have to consider, and this is part of the whole budgetary thing you're looking at, is how do we budget for perhaps meeting an accompanying officer for a visit or something like that? It may be less relevant for you, although if you're doing junkyard visits and confrontations, it's just there have been times when I've said just, I'm not gonna go up there. I mean, it's Hafford there, his posted and it says violators will be shot. It's like, I don't think that's funny.
No, I don't
And I
either.
went to the guy's website and there were plenty of other things about his website that let me say, this isn't funny. Where we are in the US of A today is not funny. And I'm not going anywhere where someone's threatening, because
Yeah,
And that's a person that we really worked with. I mean,
listen,
Above
I'm
and
the guy
beyond.
that just got shotgun shells piled up in his driveway, so.
yeah.
yeah. you don't need to go there.
Different subject. Yep, okay. So it sounds like we've got a beginning discussion on how to coalesce.
Yeah, I want to ask if there was something that came up besides septic stuff, which I think we're all agreed is kind of outside my oversight unless things change. Junkyards and RVs, which could be part of a deputy thing, which would be under my oversight, and we'd have to figure out the mechanics of it. So much stuff is done digitally now that we have to figure out how to make sure it all ends up in the same place. And was there anything else, any particular subject that came up that I've missed in terms of addressing via bullet point? I mean, I can expand on the junkyards and the RVs as to what I think could be peeled off my responsibilities in order to give someone a nicely shaped job that hung together could feed information back to me, but I'm trying to remember if there was something else that was mentioned, but, okay.
um,
And I will pass on to you as well that information on the wording for the zoning ordinance. But that was really just a way to capture what was articulated in the health ordinance. So that,
And that's really one of the things we're doing now is articulating some of the stuff
Well,
in
one of the things
ordinances,
that's been
it's
hard for
basically
me over the
RSA's.
years is that when you're sending an enforcement letter leading up to a violation letter, is that you actually want to cite, chapter and verse, as it were, of why the violation is there. And if it's just implied and not articulated in the ordinance, that's not really very useful. And people get trapped, I see people getting trapped in the planning board, saying, well, let's go back and look at the notes of the minutes of the meeting when they were writing this. I don't care how much research you want to do into the history of how the planning board made decisions for the ordinance, doesn't help. You can't say, well, I think this is what so-and-so was worried about when they wrote this, and that's what they're trying to do. I don't care. I've got black and white in front of me, and that's what I'm going on. If somebody in the planning board wasn't smart enough to get it written correctly and you get the attorney to approve the statement, then it doesn't wash. You could have had, the entire planning board and everyone else in the room saying, what we really want to do is prevent X and Y from happening. What we really want to do is prevent people from living year round in their RVs, but that isn't what we say in the zoning ordinance. What we say is what the RVs are limited to being used for. They're being limited to 150 days on their property. Doesn't say something else.
Yeah, and we're starting from scratch and being able to move that forward.
And the planning board is starting, not from scratch, but they're starting to work on amendments, so. And all of you are pretty familiar with it, you're a little bit more, it doesn't help to overburden the town with too many zoning amendments, so we need to pick and choose what's important. And sometimes it's just, the thing about the septic in the zoning ordinance, it could almost be classified as housekeeping. When it's put out to the public.
Yep.
It could be put in, this is a clarification of powers that have already been, that kind of thing, as opposed to, this is a whole new thing that we're asking you to approve.
Anything else, Rebecca?
I don't think so. I appreciate this conversation. I love the idea of being
I
able
get
to.
two quick things.
Okay, go ahead.
One question came up in a planning board meeting a couple months ago. Do you check the floodplain when you issue?
I do. I've got floodplain maps out
Okay.
there. I've actually got really nice floodplain maps. When I went to my floodplain training as administrator, they were just in the point where stuff was moving online. I had some really old printed maps, and I told the woman giving the training that I would like the good maps, and I didn't realize they weren't printing them out, but she did. So I've got a gorgeous hard copy set of floodplain maps out there in a drawer in the cabinet in the back, if anyone ever wants to look at it. And I'm happy to be, we all miss things. Look what happened with Boyle Market, things missed. So great there. Great for anyone who says, wait a minute. I think I heard that so-and-so is asking for a building permit. Isn't that down in the floodplain?
It's got it.
Generally, what I do with the floodplain is I tell people that if you want to build and your property is shown as in the floodplain, you need to go and get it surveyed and get a letter that states that where you want to build isn't in the floodplain. And then it's off my desk. And I have sort of in the back of my head, if I can remember them, when knew what they were, the different properties in town that had those letters, so that you could go and look and see what they look like and go, oh yeah, that's what you're supposed to get from FEMA, stating that this part of that property is not in the floodplain, and therefore they can build without us jumping through whatever.
One of
can
the first
build it.
things I used to look at when purchasing a piece of property.
Yeah, they
Where
can
the
build in the
floodplain, how do you
floodplain,
flood
it's
them?
just that all our FEMA stuff doesn't apply, so it makes it difficult. I just got, I've been answering questions, the Forestry Drive off Wilkinson Swamp. The last lot on the left there, the entire lot is in a high value wetland. And I've been answering emails from people who wanted to purchase it for months now. And I said, well, I don't think there's any place to put a house on that property in a septic system. Because it looks to me from the wetlands map that the entire thing is in the south, upper South River high value wetlands area. And most of the time that flies, but sometimes you get someone who says, what is that? And what does that mean? And why do I have to pay attention to that? This is New Hampshire, isn't, can I do anything I want?
The other thing was the last house in Effingham on Simon Hill Road before you go in Austin. Just past Hammond Way, the little white farmhouse.
Yep.
That guy wants to cut some driveways into his woodlot. And he said he didn't know if he needed a permit. And I says, well.
He's a nice man. He's always come to me for permits for everything.
Yeah, well, I told him to get a hold of you. I says, well, for cutting a woodlot, we don't normally require a driveway.
The only reason I do is if it's situated in a way that we think that it's gonna then eventually, someone's gonna put a house back there and they're gonna say, oh, there's an existing driveway. And I think, gosh, if we had permitted this cut back at the beginning, then it would have been put in the appropriate place, rather than telling someone, oh, well, you actually can't have your driveway there, you have to put it over here, even though you've already got this access. So, you know, mention to him to, you know, shoot me a line
Well, I
about.
did. I
Oh,
said,
okay.
you know,
Yeah.
if you just want to access your woodlot, I said, I don't think you
Yeah.
need a permit.
Is it behind the house or is it on the other
I
side of the
didn't,
road?
I didn't ask.
Because
him.
he's an interesting case, he owns property on both sides of the road and it's one lot bisected by the road. Interesting, yeah, one of my favorites, that little nuance.
All right.
Thank you, I love that kind of feedback, someone's had a question and feed it back to me. You all have my phone number now, there's a cell phone, you can text me.
quick dial.
You can text me, you can text me. And that works well, so that if I'm in a place where I don't have good service, or you don't have good service, text often goes through. And say, are you out doing site visits? I just heard X, Y, or Z, you know, can you pop in there and look at it, so.
Rebecca, thank you for your time.
Sorry about all those RVs out there,
Not a problem.
doing the best I can.
Anything else from anybody? Cool. Thank you very
Okay.
much, Rebecca.
All right, you're very welcome. Great talking with you guys. Sorry I missed last month. All my tests came back and they said I didn't have Lyme disease.
Good.
So even though I had 3 weeks of doxy and
Yeah,
was feeling like hell and not able to go out and sun,
got it.
let's hope it got whatever I did have.
Perfect.
But,
Okay.
yeah,
Good.
I mean, the bullseye was major.
Glad to see you back.
Yes, glad to be
Been a
back.
pleasure, John. Thank you very much. Just for next week's meeting. I've got a hard stop at 9:50. So if we don't complete the meeting by then.
Want me to run the meeting next week? We'll be out of here by next.
Well, I've got something I gotta do from a family standpoint. I gotta do it on the phone and online. And it's at 10 to 10:30. I don't have a choice. So if we finish everything before 9:50, great. Then we'll have our work session at 11. If for some reason we can't complete it by 9:50, we'll just recess it, come back after the work session.
We'll get it done.
Okay? All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.